Please remain standing as I invite Mr. Sanjay Keynes, UE alumna, to do the invocation.
Good evening. Again, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering us here today, this evening, in celebration of culture, heritage, and shared history. We give gratitude for the life and service of Sir Probyn Inniss, whose vision, service, and commitment continue to inspire this lecture. May this event stand as a living testimony that his work endures and his influence remains strong among us. Grant comfort and peace to his family, friends, and loved ones present, assuring them that his legacy lives on through learning, reflection, and unity. Bless this gathering, the speaker, and all who participate. In your precious name, amen.
Take a moment to honor Black History Month. We're almost at the end of it. It is a time dedicated to recognizing the struggles, the achievements, and contributions of Black individuals throughout history and in our own federation. This month reminds us that Black history is not separate from our shared story. It is an essential part of it. It is a time to celebrate pioneers who broke barriers, leaders who inspired change, and everyday people whose courage and resilience shaped the world we live in. It is also a call to reflect on the work that remains, ensuring equity, justice, and opportunity for all. And there is a lot of work that still remains to be done in terms of equity, justice, and opportunity for all. So we use this month not only to remember the past, but also to commit ourselves to building a future where diversity is valued, voices are heard, and history is honored. I now invite to give welcome remarks Ms. Sandra Isaac, the acting head of the UE Global Campus, the St. Kitts and Nevis Site.
Good evening, all. Please allow me to adopt the protocol that has been so ably established by our chairperson, Mr. Williams. First of all, I would like to extend apologies on behalf of Lady Inniss, who is unable to join us in person at this event this evening. I would also like to express apologies on behalf of Dr. Sam and Dr. Joan Rollins, who asked me to let the audience be aware that although they are unable to join us in person, they will be joining us online in support of the event that is taking place this evening. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the 9th annual Sir Probyn Inniss Memorial Lecture. On January 27, 2005, a public lecture was held as part of the University of the West Indies School of Continuing Studies Education Program in collaboration with the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park during the observance of History and Heritage Month. That first lecture was delivered by Sir Probyn Inniss on the topic, Roots of the 1935 Buckley Riots. History and Heritage Month itself was the brainchild of Sir Probyn, a visionary who understood the importance of preserving, documenting, and sharing our stories. In recognition of his invaluable contribution to national consciousness and cultural preservation, the History and Heritage Lecture was renamed in 2018 as the Sir Inniss Memorial Lecture. This evening, we gather under the theme Celebrating the Arts of Black Expression, Past, Present, and Future. This theme invites us to reflect not only on where we have come from, but also to appreciate how the creative expressions of Black people through our music, dance, literature, visual arts, film, and fashion continue to shape the identity, resilience, and possibility of Black people. Black expression has always been more than just the arts. It is also our voice, our resistance, our affirmation, and our hope. Tonight's lecture will be both insightful and thought-provoking, I assure you of that. I therefore encourage you to engage fully, to listen attentively, to ask questions, and to share your perspectives. It is through dialogue and understanding that history becomes meaningful and heritage becomes a lived experience. Knowledge is power. The more deeply we understand our history and our heritage, the more confidently we can embrace who we are and chart the course for our future generations. So once again, I warmly welcome you, and I look forward to an engaging and an enrichment evening this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. I now invite Mr. Percival Hanley, the General Manager of the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park, to give brief remarks.
A good evening to all, and welcome to this 9th edition of the Sir Probyn Inniss Memorial Lecture. I would like to adopt the protocols that were ably established by our chairperson. History and Heritage Month of activities is an annual social outreach activity organized by the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society, the Nevis Historical Conservation Society, the St. Christopher National Trust, the Department of Cultural Expression, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, the History Club of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, the Charles A. Halbert Public Library, the University of the West Indies Open Campus on St. Kitts and Nevis, and other interested individuals who form the History and Heritage Committee. We present each year a variety of activities throughout the month of February, sometimes spilling over into March, depending on the schedule, which seeks to promote greater knowledge, understanding, and appreciation of the history, heritage, and culture of our country among our citizens, and thereby fostering stronger and national identity and pride. As you heard earlier, the theme for this year's activities is celebrating the arts of Black expression, past, present, and future. Though there are several ethnic groups that have played and still play a very important part in the history and heritage of St. Kitts and Nevis, and who we recognize and celebrate continuously, this theme was chosen to focus this year on the particular contribution of our African roots to the various art forms and expressions on St. Kitts and Nevis, and also in the Caribbean. This will focus on the contribution to the visual arts, dance, drama, music, poetry, fashion, language, and culinary arts, among other things. The history and heritage activities, which started originally as a week of activities and later expanded to a month of activities, was a brainchild of the late Sir Probyn Inniss, president of the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society from 2005 to 2017. He was not only the founder, but he was a passionate person about history and heritage. He's written several books which are available for us to read and peruse. He dedicated a lot of his time and energy with the History and Heritage Committee, putting the activities together each year. His contribution to this annual activity is celebrated by naming this lecture the Sir Probyn Inniss Memorial Lecture. And as we heard before, it is the 9th edition of that lecture. This year, the lecture will be presented by Miss Carla Astafan, a well-known intellectual and artisan of the Federation, and we are certainly very pleased that she has graciously accepted the invitation to speak to us tonight. I therefore welcome all of you to this event, those present in person and those who have joined us in the various online media platforms. Thank you for attending and therefore supporting the History and Heritage Committee as we celebrate the arts of Black expression, past, present, and future. In closing, I would like to thank the members of the committee for their contribution and assistance, and in particular, Ms. Sandra Isaac and her team from the University of the West Indies Global Campus, St. Kitts and Nevis, who are the main organizers, sponsors, and hosts of this signature event. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and students. See, we have quite a few students. Do enjoy the lecture, which I'm sure will be an interesting and stimulating one. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley, for your presentation. We want to recognize among us Professor Jessica Byron. Right. I now invite Mrs. Keisha Isaac Adams to do a cultural item. She is a UWI alumna, and she is the assistant to the Director of Culture.
Good evening to everyone. Please allow me to adopt the protocol that was so ably established. Let's see. The last time I came to anything UWI-wise to perform, I was a dancer. As you can see, that was many moons ago. And now I come to present to you in spoken word. But before I begin my piece, I wonder if you would all like to help me with the opening with Bob Marley's first line in his song, Old Pirates Came to Rabbi. Everybody knows that, right? And everybody knows the tune? So if you can sing that for me, because I can't really sing tonight, but if you can sing that for me, we'll get into it, okay? So let's go after 2. 1, 2. Oh, I sound good. Going good? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I had a dream. I dreamt that I was a little girl running in the field, heartbeat drumming violently in my chest. I got to my village, and it all spilled out. Come, everybody! Did you hear the news? The pale-faced men come ashore today. They come, smelling of the sea and dread, and carried with them thunder and lightning. They ravaged the villages. They hunted the people, my people. They chained and shackled them and took them away in the big canoe. I cried after them, "What's in your hands? You can't go away empty. You need to pack a bag, or you will surely forget." I don't want you to forget. You were taken so quickly, you left everything behind. How will you survive without, well, everything? Everything that makes us us. Then a voice reached my ears with a message just for me. It was loud and clear. It spoke quite jubilantly. Listen, young one, I need you to understand, whether at home or in a foreign land, in mountains, forest, or sea, always bear in mind, them can't fit like we. Oh, I said as my eyes opened wide. Did my people conquer? Did they survive? Oh, yes, said the voice. They are very much alive. And not only that, they will forever thrive. Then, like my granny spinning a tale, the voice bent low and lifted the veil. For us, we can say, time has been exceptionally cruel, but in our effort to live, we used it as our fuel. And what is this fetting? I ventured to ask. It's a celebration of us, an exhibition of our craft. So a party, well, that's a little disappointing. I was thinking of greatness and grandeur. Now that's what I call exciting. Now don't be so brash, was what I was told. Our people are more than stories being sold. I want you to listen, and listen keenly. I reiterate, them can't fit like we. We left empty-handed, but we were never bare. Our hearts were full, and there were maps in our hair. Our voices pour out, our riches unmeasured. Our ideas profound, our creativity treasured. Sorry. Our languages got muddled, so we made it our own. Our bodies moved through time with secrets unknown. Our laughter fills the air with magic. If we couldn't do it, trust me, that would be tragic. When we paint, mysteries are uncovered. When we sing, the grays of this world get colored. In our eyes, stars glisten. And when we speak, even the heavens listen. There's nothing in this world quite like our smile. When God made it, He made it so that you can see it from a mile. When we are encountered, we never leave your mind. It doesn't take a band to make our hips sway. We would knock a pen and still get way. We are the foundation and the elevation. We are the curators of the celebration. No matter the shape, no matter the form, our passion molds each, everyone, and all. From the elegant and bougie of the upper class to the grassroots and roadways shaking our, well, you know. Nobody can touch us. I hope you can see. We who are kissed by the sun, them can't fit like we. Thank you.
Them can't fit like we. I think that deserves another round of applause. And something that jumped out at me there is when Mrs. Adams said, we are more than the stories that they have sold. Because sometimes we might be inclined to believe what they've said about us. But we are much more than what they've said about us. I now invite Ms. Pauline Duport to introduce our speaker, and she is the committee liaison officer, the Student Guild. Ms. Duport.
think it needs to get done a bit at the short. Miss Carla Astafan arrived in St. Kitts in September 1983 from Dominica to work at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. She quickly became immersed in community life, joining the Leat Hawks Netball Club and entering its fundraising Queen pageant that same year. Committed to personal growth, she pursued GCE O-level and A-level evening studies while actively engaging in cultural and heritage initiatives. In later years, Carla joined the St. Christopher Heritage Society, contributing to the production of its magazine. After leaving the ECCB in 1989, she earned a certificate in interior design from the New School of Interior Design in 1990 and began her career in designing and decorating. This creative path led her into the arts, and in 1993, she enrolled in a pottery course at the Venezuelan Institute for Culture and Cooperation, discovering a passion that has endured over 30 years. Deeply rooted in St. Kitts and Nevis's cultural life, Miss Carla Astafan has participated in Carnival, served as a pageant and troupe judge, educated art competitions, and contributed to radio and television panel discussions. She has delivered presentations for Black History Month, African Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day. She became a popular talk show host on Win FM's Voices and Jambalaya, and later hosted her own program, What's Happening with Carla T, on Radio St. Kitts, Nevis. In 2004, Carla joined the St. Kitts Scenic Railway. We're sharing the nation's history with visitors and locals, reignited her love for historical inquiry. In 2007, she entered the real estate field with Codwell Banker St. Kitts Nevis Realty, now Wally Realty, expanding both her professional reach and her opportunity to interpret the island's heritage for a global audience. Inspired by a UNESCO reparation symposium, Carla returned to academia in 2015, enrolling at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, where she earned an associate degree in humanities history, graduating cum laude in 2018. In 2020, she became chair of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Reparations Committee and has represented the Federation at meetings of the CARICOM Reparations Commission, as well as international symposiums and retreats. She represented the country at the AIDO Reparations Convention and delivered presentations at the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent in Geneva in 2024. Her work in reparations further fueled her academic journey. In December 2025, she graduated with a master's degree in reparatory justice from the University of Glasgow and the University of the West Indies. I think we can put our hands together for that one. Her research focused on the legacies of slavery, emancipation, and reparatory justice in the Caribbean, particularly the history of compensation at abolition and its enduring social and economic impacts in St. Kitts and Nevis. Miss Carla Astafan remains passionate about bridging scholarship and community engagement, ensuring that history is not only studied, but meaningfully understood and used to inform present and future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, help me welcome this evening our presenter for the 9th annual Sir Probyn Inniss Lecture, none other than Miss Carla Astafan. Can you rise to your feet, please, as we welcome our guest speaker for this evening. Praise God. With a round of applause, Miss Carla Astafan.
Wow, thank you. What can I say? This was nice. Good evening, everyone. Let me kindly allow me to adopt the protocol so ably established by Chairperson Mr. Lesroy Williams. Thank you for inviting me to deliver this year's Sir Probyn Inniss Memorial Lecture. I am deeply honored to have been given this opportunity, one that I never imagined nor expected. So once again, thank you. Sir Probyn, you know, every time I met him and I listened to his voice, I always thought that he sounded like my father. So they had that same tone there. So maybe we're distantly related. We don't know where the boat landed. Cousins and brothers and sisters. The theme, celebrating the arts of Black expression, past, present, and future, is a vast topic, which I will explore through the lens of heritage, resistance, and reparations. The celebration of Black excellence in arts must be art rooted in a past that harkens back to Africa. The Black race originated from Africa, the motherland, the birthplace of civilization. African people, the people referred to as Black people, can trace their origins to Africa. Therefore, Black hair means African. This makes us an African people. What exactly are the arts? The arts can be defined to include diverse human-created practices that use skill, imagination, and creativity to express emotions, ideas, or aesthetic beauty. It encompasses visual arts, that is painting, sculpture, pottery, performing arts, the music, the dance, poetry, literature, of course, poetry again, prose, writing, media arts, film and digital expression, etc. People of different regions of the world express their culture through the arts. African people, Black people's practice of the arts predate European contact. I will therefore begin with an exploration of the amazing art produced pre-European contact with Africans. Before European invasion and colonization, Africa flourished with artistic brilliance. The Yoruba people perfected bronze casting, creating intricate sculptures that honored kings and deities. The Akan wove kente cloth, each pattern carrying meaning about identity and philosophy. We are all familiar with the kente cloth. Many of us wear it during Black History Month and other times. Griots preserved history through oral storytelling, while mask makers and drummers gave rhythm and spirit to communal life. The arrival of Europeans violently disrupted this heritage. The looting of African art began almost immediately after Europeans established sustained contact with the continent. Early explorers and missionaries removed artifacts as souvenirs or curiosities, stripping them of their cultural and spiritual context. These acts were not isolated. They reflected a broader pattern of exploitation that accompanied the transatlantic slave trade in enslaved Africans. By the 19th century, looting became organized and systematic, tied directly to colonial conquest. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 85 formalized European claims to African territories, and with it came widespread plunder of cultural treasures. The 1897 British punitive expedition against Benin stands as one of the most infamous examples where thousands of bronzes and ivory works were seized and dispersed across Europe. So you see here one of the Benin bronzes. Benin bronzes are metal plaques which decorated the kingdom of Benin in what is today known as the Edo state of Nigeria. The Nok terracotta figures of Nigeria So this one here, the Nok terracotta figures of Nigeria, are among the oldest known sculptures in sub-Saharan Africa. They were smuggled into private collections. These losses remind us that the theft of African art was not only material but cultural, stripping communities of their symbols of memory, spirituality, and resistance. This theft was not merely material, it represented an assault on African identity, memory, and sovereignty. Today, the presence of these artifacts in Western museums is a stark reminder of colonial violence and the urgent call for reparations and restitution. Yet, even as Africa suffered the theft of its treasures, the scattering of its people, those who were forced into the New World carried fragments of their heritage with them. In the face of enslavement and oppression, art became not only memory, but survival, a language of resistance that endured across generations. Thus, in the face of cultural theft and forced displacement, African heritage endured, carried in the rhythms of the drum, the patterns of cloth, the stories told in whispers and song. This survival was not passive, it was resistance. And it is in this spirit of resistance, that continues to shape the arts of Black expression today in this present moment. Permit me to first highlight the art of pottery making as a celebration of Black excellence in the arts. As I have practiced this art form for the past 33 years, you can understand my partiality to that subject. African pottery has a history spanning more than 11,000 years, making it one of the world's oldest independent ceramic traditions. Long before European contact, communities across the Sahara, West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa developed distinctive styles and techniques. At Ongunju in Mali, the earliest known African pottery dates back to 9400 BCE, crafted by hunter-gatherers to boil wild grasses. The Nok culture of Nigeria produced terracotta vessels and sculptures as early as 500 BCE, while pastoralists in Kenya's Turkana Basin created enderic ware. It's intricately patterned basket-like bowls made from clay. In southern Africa, thin-walled wares reflected the mobility of herders, while thicker vessels were linked to Iron Age farming communities. African potters worked entirely by hand, using coiling, beating, and modeling rather than the wheel. Vessels were fired in open pits or bonfires, achieving durability without glazes and decorated with rouletting, incising, and burnishing, or red ochre. Pottery was more than utility. It carried social and spiritual meaning. Women were often the primary potters, linking the craft to themes of creativity and fertility. Vessels stored water and served in rituals from funerary urns to offerings at shrines. Designs encoded lineage, identity, and belief systems, making pottery both a practical art and a cultural marker. The art of pottery is not a relic of the past. It is a living tradition that continues to thrive across Africa and within the African diaspora. The same hand-building techniques, open firing methods, and decorative practices that shaped vessels thousands of years ago are still practiced today in Mali, Nigeria, Kenya, and Southern Africa. Potters continue to mold clay into forms that sustain daily life and embody cultural meaning. In the Caribbean and the Americas, descendants of enslaved Africans carried this knowledge with them, adapting it to new environments while preserving its essence. As a potter, I see this living thread. When I shape clay, I am in spiritual dialogue, so sometimes I don't even know how to make something, but I'm communing with my ancestors who transformed earth into art, and with contemporary African potters who keep the tradition vibrant. Pottery, then, is both heritage and resistance, a tangible link between past and present, Africa and its diaspora. The art of pottery is not confined to the ancient past. It lives on vibrantly today, both on the African continent and across the diaspora. In the Caribbean, artists like Jean Pearson, now deceased, a celebrated Jamaican sculptor and potter, who influenced many Caribbean potters with his beautiful raku heads. Potters like Courtney Devonish of Barbados, who's resident in Anguilla today. Courtney does he also does woodcraft, so today he's doing a lot of beautiful handcrafted wooden hearts. And of course, our own Nevisian potters like Almina Cornelius of Newcastle Pottery, who continue the traditions that echo ancestral practices. Over in Nevis, the exact same techniques that I talked about are still being done today, where she builds these pots and fires them in the same African tradition. So I pause now to also recall a lady whom I met many, many years ago. She's now deceased, so Miss Queely of blessed memory, who I used to visit over on Nevis to be shown how to make yaba pots. I never got to be able to do it, but I tried a couple of times and did not succeed. Their method requires the use of Nevis clay, and they just they mine that clay and use it in a way. But I always got some splits on the bottom of my pot, so I gave up on that and stuck to wheel-thrown pottery. The Nevis potters continue to work in that same tradition, as I just said. And in the wider African diaspora, there are people like Reuben King at Brooklyn Clay Industries. He's originally from Dominica. He brings the Caribbean sensibilities into his work. He was trained in Italy, in Dominica and in Italy. And he runs a pottery studio teaching pottery and selling his work as well. Across the African and Caribbean world, potters sustain this heritage, blending African building. I forgot to do this, sorry, the clicker. So let me stop here for a moment. So this is Almina Cornelius building her pots there. She's in the top picture. Someone who's learning the pottery in Nevis. So this is a Rasta man, I guess, with this making a pot. So she's been teaching him in that picture. And there you see her packing the pots, building an outdoor kiln, as I mentioned earlier. So while I use an electric kiln, she does all of this hard work, which again dates back to our African heritage. The persistence of pottery across generations affirm that African creativity was never extinguished. It adapts, it flourishes, and resists erasure. In their hands, clay become a living archive, a testament to heritage, survival, and the enduring power of Black expression. In the Americas, North, South, and Central America, and the Caribbean, enslaved Africans had to find a way to survive despite the hardships they encountered. The skills of artisans among the enslaved were exploited by European enslavers. During slavery, art was both a survival tool and a weapon of resistance. Spirituals carried hidden messages, guiding escape routes and expressing hope in coded language. Drumming and dance, often suppressed by slaveholders, became acts of defiance, preserving African rhythms and asserting humanity. Quilts and pottery were not only functional but symbolic, encoding cultural identity and sometimes serving as covert communication. Storytelling traditions kept alive ancestral wisdom and strategies for resilience, ensuring that African heritage endured despite attempts to erase it. This pot, I saw pots like this at the Metropolitan Museum, and they were built by Dave the Potter, also known as David Drake. Many persons may not have heard of him, but he transformed clay into a vessel of resistance. Enslaved in South Carolina in the 19th century, he inscribed his monumental jars with poetry and his own name, acts of defiance in a society that forbade literacy among the enslaved. His inscriptions, ranging from couplets to moral reflections, asserted voice, humanity, and authorship in a world that sought to silence him. Each jar became more than a utilitarian object. It was a living text, a fusion of craft and literature that challenged oppression. Today, his work stands as a testament to how Black art carried resistance, not only in form, but in word, bridging material culture and literary defiance. I had the opportunity to see his pots, as I just mentioned, when I visited the Metropolitan Museum in New York. His work is also shown in exhibitions like Hear Me Now, the Black Potters of Old Edgefield in South Carolina, and of course at the Met. They foreground his artistry within a broader community of enslaved potters, who reframed their work as central to American art history rather than peripheral craft. Dave the Potter's work reminds us that resistance can be inscribed in the most ordinary materials. By merging craft and literature, he transformed clay into a medium of survival, authorship, and protest. Today, his legacy challenges us to see Black art not only as aesthetic achievement, but as a living archive of resistance, resilience, and identity. In the post-abolition era, Black art shifted into public resistance. Freed communities use literature, painting, and sculpture to reclaim narratives and challenge stereotypes. The Harlem Renaissance became a cultural revolution, asserting Black pride and intellectual power. Later, artists like Jacob Lawrence chronicled migration and struggle, while Faith Ringhold's story quilts fused art with activism. And this is a picture here of Faith Ringhold. She did quite a lot of quilts. And I think she died a few years ago. These works were not passive reflections, they were calls to action, shaping movement for justice and equality. Black art thus remained a living archive of resistance from the plantation to the gallery, from survival to liberation. In my search for some contemporary voices in Black art expression, I discovered Carol Walker from the USA, who is known for her large-scale black paper silhouettes. She explores slavery, race, gender, and violence in haunting theatrical scenes. Her work forces audiences to confront the brutal legacies of slavery and resistance, of legacies of slavery and the persistence of racial stereotypes. Ebony G. Patterson from Jamaica creates vibrant, layered installations with textiles, glitter, and mixed media, and focuses on violence, visibility, and memorization, from highlighting victims of systemic justice. Her art asks who is seen, who is remembered, and who is erased. Yinka Shonibare from Nigeria uses Dutch wax fabrics in sculpture, photography, and installation, and critiques colonialism, identity, and cultural hybridity. His stage tableau exposed the absurdities of empire and the entanglement of African and European histories. Vaughan Anselm, a Nevisian artist, paints beautifully, and he captures in a lot of his work a lot of the African elements. You've seen this piece here. He's in the painting this woman's face, and you see all the patterns that are very, you recognize from African art. And he does a lot of other work. I think he loves doing faces besides the the turtles and so on that he does, but he's very good at this. So I love his work, and I thought I would add it here. Rastes Roy, on the bottom, you can find him at the Amina Craft Market for years. I mean, he worked in clay as well, but he finds pieces of wood, and he is able to see the faces in them and carve them out. So every piece is a distinct piece of art. He does some beautiful work in other mediums, copper and so on as well. So I took this picture of him last week at the craft market with some of his heads and masks and so on. Of course, me making pots on the wheel. And that bottom quilt here was done by a young lady, a Kititian who lives in New York, Renee Clark. She has been making clothing for children using African fabrics, but recently she started on a journey of making quilts. And so I'm putting that, she's following in Keith Ringhold's tradition of making quilts and as a way of exploring her African identity. So all of us, and there are many other artists, too numerous to mention, that continue to, show our voices and express our Africanity. I now turn to an artist whose work really struck me. I discovered him while I was doing my studies, and it's Kwame Okoto Bamfu and the Art of Resistance. He created this installation at the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. It is a realistic and vivid memorialization of the brutality and horror of Africans in captivity. So this, what I'm sharing right now, is what I wrote. I had to do a reflective piece on a piece that would be in a museum, and I discovered that piece, so I stuck it in here because it shows. It is a stark reminder of the terror experienced by Africans as captives throughout enslavement. The artist has painstakingly sculpted each statue in intricate detail so that every painful expression and emotion experienced by humans in captivity, including the blood, sweat, and tears, is visible. The juxtaposition of each human form purposefully placed in a position or stance, depicts a message of defiance and a refusal to be subjugated. The viewer may recognize an attempt by each to escape, to break free from bondage. The heart-wrenching depiction of the mother holding her baby while reaching for her partner is an interpretation of the despair felt by enslaved persons when families were ripped apart and sold. Throughout captivity and enslavement, Africans resisted. This visually unsettling and radical artistic composition not only honors the memory of the enslaved, but jolts the viewer to visualize the atrocities, the past atrocities of slavery. It creates a sense of empathy at the legacy of slavery experienced today. Okota Bamfu's sculptures at the legacy museums are not only memorials, they are confrontations. His life-size figures embodies the pain, resilience, and humanity of enslaved Africans, demanding that visitors reckon with history by grounding his work in memory and trauma. He transforms art into a site of healing and advocacy. His philosophy insists that repair begins with truth, that only by facing the brutality of slavery and its legacies can communities move towards justice. In this way, he joins his art with Carol Walker's silhouettes, Ebony Patterson's memorials, and Yinka Shonibari's colonial critics in a continuum of Black creativity that documents injustice and demands repair. So I also explored some contemporary Caribbean artists. So I came across Tessa Mars from Haiti, whose painting and performance uses painting and performance to explore identity, migration, and post-colonial realities. Her work often reflects on displacement and the search for belonging. Leosho Johnson of Jamaica blends street art, dance hall aesthetics, and traditional forms, and challenges stereotypes of Black masculinity and sexuality, reclaiming Caribbean identity. Jean-Ulrich Desert from Haiti and lives in Germany is a conceptual artist working with installation and performance and tackles exile, diaspora, and the politics of visibility. Christopher Cozier from Trinidad and Tobago uses drawing, installation, and writing to critique Caribbean politics and post-colonial power structures. His art interrogates how colonial legacies shape contemporary governance and identity. Let's shift now to music. And of course, we started the, what's her name, our poet, Keisha, gave us Bob Marley earlier. So reggae emerged in Jamaica, of course, in the late 1960s, which was more than a sound. It was a philosophy of liberation. Rooted in Rastafari spirituality and the struggles of the poor, reggae became a global anthem of resistance. Bob Marley's Get Up, Stand Up and Redemption song carried messages of defiance and hope, while Peter Tosh and Burning Spear used their music to demand justice and reconnect diasporic audiences to Africa. Reggae's slow, insistent rhythm mirrored the persistence of oppressed people, turning music into a rallying cry for freedom. Calypso, born in Trinidad and Tobago, carried the wit and satire of enslaved Africans who used coded songs to critique colonial authorities. By the 20th century, Calypsonians like Mighty Sparrow and Lord Kitchener sharpened the genre into a weapon of social commentary. In St. Kitts and Nevis, Calypsonians like King Corneris Maynard, who followed in his father's footsteps, and we heard him with his one song, which is keep playing in my head for the last few days, from the recent opening of the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. That song just not going away. But we all know he caused quite a stir with his dropping that song. Of course, King Socrates, Kings This and That, Big Lies, and many other our current Calypso king, Druzy, Calypso became the stage where they mocked power and celebrated survival, reclaimed public space. In its humor and rhythm, Calypso embodied resistance, a collective protest wrapped in joy and satire. Jazz, formed in African-American communities of New Orleans, embodied improvisation as freedom. Its syncopated rhythms and spontaneous solos defied rigid structures, symbolizing liberation from racial hierarchies. Artists like Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington elevated Black creativity to high art, while John Coltrane and Nina Simone infused jazz with overt political messages. Simone's Mississippi Goddam was a direct protest against racial violence, proving that jazz could both be aesthetic brilliance and political fire. Other genres carried the same spirit. The blues gave voice to pain and resilience under Jim Crow oppression. Hip-hop, born in the Bronx, became a global protest culture, narrating the struggles of marginalized youth. Dancehall and soca continued Calypso's tradition of sharp critique. My Dominica Buyo is making waves right now. Blending celebration with biting commentary. Across these genres, Black music has become a living archive of resistance, transforming suffering into song, satire into protest, and rhythm into revolution. Dance has always been a language of resistance in the African diaspora. Enslaved Africans carried rhythms, gestures, and rituals across the Atlantic, embedding memory and identity into movement. Even when drumming was banned on plantations, dance became a coded form of communication, a way to preserve spirituality and community. Our masquerade and clown dances, the ring shouts, the jonquenu and masquerades, and other plantation-era dances asserted humanity and joy in the face of oppression, transforming the body into a site of defiance. On the board here we have. In the Caribbean, these traditions evolved into forms like ballet, quadrille, comina, dinkinimini, carnival dances, each linking survival to celebration. Carnival itself became a living protest, reclaiming public space through masquerade, satire, and rhythm. Dance was not only entertainment, but a collective act of resistance, carrying African heritage into new contexts and asserting cultural pride against colonial suppression. Contemporary choreographers have continued this legacy. Antoinette Steins of Jamaica, through her company Le Acado, fuses African and Caribbean traditions with modern techniques, emphasizing dance as a language of healing, identity, and resistance. I had the opportunity to dance with Laura Antoinette. Were you there too, Sarah? During the dance workshop she gave at the Creative Economy Expo held at the Marriott Hotel in September 2024. It was an amazing experience where she focused on feeling our heritage through the beat of the drum to create movement. So she really encouraged us to, as the drum played. Were you there, Keisha? Okay. But you remember that. And she, it was really a wonderful experience. I mean, when the drum started at one point and I just broke into dance because I had said beforehand, I can't dance. And so when she said, just feel the drum and do whatever comes to mind, and I must have spun around, just as feeling the drum, and she said, stop. You see this lady over there? She came in and she said she can't dance. But look at her. As soon as the drum started, she just threw herself into it. And, so that is what we are supposed to just feel the drum, right? And that is our Africanness. That comes through, that really comes through. So People like Catherine Dunham created Kumbe dance in America, Pearl Primus and other. They both have Caribbean roots, and they brought that Afro-Caribbean form into global recognition in the US. They use dance to confront racism and celebrate African traditions. Their work shows how movement can be both aesthetic, brilliance, and political statement. Local groups like Okolo Tegramanti, and that's a dance with Okolo there on the far right, in St. Kitts and Nevis, embody this continuity at the community level. With decades of history, they kept African-inspired drumming and dance alive, performing at regional festivals and training new generations. Their work demonstrates how local practice sustains heritage, turning dance into a living archive of resilience. Alumni like Alfonso Henry, who moved on to institutions like Edna Manley School of Visual and Performing Arts, carry these traditions into broader artistic networks, showing how local resistance feeds global creativity. Together, these forms and figures reveal dance as resistance embodied from plantation ring shouts to carnival masquerade, from Stein's choreographies to Okolo Tegramanti's community performances. Dance asserts identity, preserves heritage, and demands recognition. Its gesture and rhythm resists erasure, reminding us that movement itself is a form of survival and protest. Carnival is the Caribbean's, is one of the most vivid expressions. Sorry, how do I go back? Yes, Carnival is one of the most vivid expressions of resistance in Black art, emerging from African masquerade traditions and the defiance of enslaved peoples. Carnival transformed suppression into spectacle. When colonial authorities sought to control public gatherings, enslaved Africans used dance, music, and masquerade to reclaim space, turning the streets into stages of protest. Carnival then became a living archive of survival, where satire mocked power and joy itself became an act of defiance. The costumes, the dances, the music of Carnival are not merely decorative, they carry coded histories. Masqueraders embody ancestral spirits, warriors and tricksters, channeling African heritage into contemporary performance. Calypso and soca provide the soundtrack, blending and humor and critique to challenge authority. Each parade, each masquerade band is a collective act of resistance, asserting identity and cultural pride against colonial erasure. Carnival also functions as a community protest. It reclaims public space, turning the streets into arenas of freedom where marginalized voices are amplified. The satire of calypso lyrics, the boldness of dance, the creativity of costume design, all converge to critique injustice while celebrating survival. In this way, Carnival is both an art and activism, a festival of resistance that documents oppression and demands repair. Today, Carnival continues to evolve as a global expression of Black creativity and resilience. From Port of Spain to Bastia, from Notting Hill to Brooklyn, Carnival carries the memory of slavery and colonialism while celebrating the vibrancy of diasporic identity. It is a reminder that resistance can be joyful, that protest can be embodied in rhythm and masquerade, and that Black art thrives in the fusion of heritage and defiance. The journey through Black art, from music and dance to carnival and visual expression, shows how creativity has always been a form of resistance. Yet resistance is not the end of the story. The next step is repair. Just as artists have documented injustice and celebrated survival, they now call for reparations, cultural, moral, and artistic. Museums and institutions are beginning to acknowledge responsibility, engaging in cultural restitution and returning looted artifacts. Art itself becomes reparations, restoring dignity and reconnecting communities with their heritage. Museums and institutions like the University of Cambridge have returned, just recently, the University of Cambridge returned 39 looted Ugandan artifacts. That is just one such example, and there are other examples of that. These objects included regalia, pottery, and ceremonial items. They had been held in Britain for over a century. Their repatriation represents more than the movement of objects. It is a symbolic act of repair, acknowledging historical wrongs and restoring cultural dignity and the restitution of heritage. Caribbean literature and thought have been central to articulating both resistance and the demand for reparations. From George Lamin in works like Castle of My Skin, exposed the psychological scars of colonial education and insisted on cultural repair as essential to liberation. Kamau Bradford championed nation language, reclaiming the rhythms and idioms of Caribbean speech as a form of resistance against colonial erasure. Frantz Fanon, though rooted in Martinique and later Algeria, provided a radical framework in The Wretched of the Earth, arguing that decolonization must be both material and psychological, a call that resonates deeply with reparatory justice. Eric Williams in Capitalism and Slavery demonstrated how the wealth of Europe was built on Caribbean exploitation, laying the intellectual foundation for economic reparations. Derek Walcott, through his works, he reimagined classical traditions from Caribbean lives, through Caribbean lives, insisting that storytelling itself is a form of repair, restoring dignity to the marginalized. Together, these luminaries show that Caribbean literature is not only an art, but advocacy, a continuum of resistance, memory, and imagination that demands justice and envisions liberated futures. I go now to the future. Sorry, I had skipped that while I was talking. So this is one of the Benin bronzes that was returned, and we talk about the future now. Afrofuturism, what is it? It is a vibrant cultural movement blending science, fiction, technology, African mythology, to reimagine Black history and envision empowerment for of future realities. So while restitution addresses the past, Afrofuturism reimagines this liberated future. So artists, writers, and filmmakers are looking beyond oppression, reclaiming technology, space, and time as sites of freedom. These speculative visions are blueprints for possibility, showing that reparations must also include the freedom to dream. The future also belongs to the next generation. Young artists, dancers, musicians, and writers are using creativity as advocacy, healing, and vision. Their work ensures that reparations are not only financial, but cultural, moral, and artistic. By engaging youth, communities sustain the continuum of resistance and repair, ensuring that imagination becomes action. We have journeyed, ladies and gentlemen, as I close, we have journeyed through the power of Black expression, celebrating the visual art, the rhythms of reggae and calypso, to the movements of dance and carnival, to the words of Caribbean literary giants, and finally to the visions of reparations and Afrofuturism. Each form of art has carried resistance, preserved heritage, and demanded justice. Together they remind us of the proverb, "Until the lion tells his story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." Today the lion is speaking through music, dance, literature, carnival, and imagination. To celebrate Black expression is to honor our heritage, amplify our resistance, and envision repair. It is to ensure that our stories are told in our own voices, shaping futures where dignity, justice, and creativity are inseparable. The lion's roar is not only a memory, it is a prophecy, calling us to carry this story forward and to live the liberated futures we imagine. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Technical question. So I heard you say for the folks that do pottery in Nevis, they use Vision clay. So is it that way for generally for the islands? So if you do pottery in St. Kitts, you use Kitchen clay in Dominica and Barbados and so on?
Okay, Barbados has, I'll start with Barbados because I trained in Barbados for a while at a pottery there. Barbados has a lot of clay. Nevis has a lot of clay. St. Kitts clay, when I first started doing pottery, it was at the Venezuelan Institute for Culture and Cooperation, and we went and we dug clay on Connery and on the peninsula. And at the end of 3 weeks of making a lot of pottery, he did a pit firing at the beach. So we dug a hole and put, what do you call it? Anyway, I forget right now. But anyway, the next morning, there was nothing. Yes. Everything vanished into thin air. Yes, it was a lot of us. We had, because it was a 3-week course, there were students in the morning and students in the afternoon, so that was a lot of work, and all of it just disintegrated. Some years later, I would go back to Connery to get some clay and try again, and did a bonfire with it, and it just disappeared. So Nevis clay has the ability to be fired in a bonfire. St. Kitts clay is what you call like a sandy loam, so it's not really good for making pots. So the pottery tradition has always been a Nevis. And Nevis, when I speak to Almin, I know that is under threat, just like in Barbados. The potters there, they're under threat because with, as we move forward, as we become more, industrialized and all of these investments taking place, the building, people are losing the land. I saw the same thing in India when you read about it. So potters are under threat all over. Yeah, I was in Barbados and I'd heard, he's now deceased, Mr. Bell, whose pottery I was at, and before he died, he was talking about the fact that Barbados potters are under threat. So Dominica has a lot of clay, so they can do pottery, but I think their pottery tradition has died out, so they need to re-enter that. Yes?
Congratulate you on very comprehensive presentation, very insightful and very instructive.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, as you did your research, did you come across how social media has made African dance more acceptable? Maybe grow up seeing it as vulgar. Is it becoming more acceptable because of social media?
Well, I think, what do I say? I think Africans accept their dance. I mean, we were told things like, as if, well, it was something bad. What I will say, which may be controversial, is African dance has their different meanings. So when you look at it, whether it's girls coming to becoming women, right? They go through their rituals and so on. Maybe their breasts are exposed or their bottoms are exposed, but it is their culture. It's a vast difference to what we see on the streets here for Carnival. So it's, while that is, we were talking about the acceptance, I personally do not see when we say that what happens here, and we say it's carnival, it's, the sexualized behavior that happens. I'm not saying carnival is, but some of the over-sexualized behavior that happens is not African culture. So the South African dances where the girls are exposed and they're doing the thing, that is their culture. What we have now, it's people can accept, but personally, it's my personal thing that it's not what I can accept. Maybe I'm old now, that's it. So.
Football, the black players normally celebrate dancing, and now they're being berated for seen as over-celebrating. Especially the particular Brazilian. Anytime you score goals, they dance and, and Europeans.
Well, we are different people, We are different people. Dance is part of who we are. Dance is part of who we are. I guess it's evolving. Everybody has their own,
I mean, that's true. But you think in the West Indian cricketers, they play and flamboyant of the West
Yeah, we
Indian.
have it
Make
really-
us different. And we behave differently. And we yourself have to recognize that and don't see it as to look down on ourselves, but we have to recognize that we're different, and that's us. As I say, I live in archive. That's a narrative trope to your presentation, that these art are living archives of African heritage.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Elsie?
There has been so erasure. I wonder, how do we ensure that we're learning our culture and our heritage in the correct context? I'll give you an example. The earrings that you're wearing, it's an Adinkra symbol. It's Jinyame. It means God is supreme, right? But people will buy it and they won't know. And they'll wear it and someone will say, I love your earrings, they're beautiful. What does it mean? And they'll say, I don't know. I had to learn that for myself, so now I know. But there are other things that I don't know. I went to a conference where there were Gambians, and I was wearing an African necklace that a friend gifted to me, and it had layers and layers of African fabric. And they said to me, oh my gosh, you're getting married. And I said, who told you guys I'm getting married? They're like, in our culture, when a girl is getting married, she wears that necklace to signal to the whole community that she's getting married, she's off of the market, and she'll wear it for several weeks. So see me showing up at the People Conference in my necklace thinking it's beautiful and I'm celebrating my African culture and ancestry, but I'm signaling to them that I'm getting married, which I'm very much single.
Well, that's, as you're saying that, it's what comes to rediscovering who we are, right? So who are we before slavery or before European contact? What meaning our art symbols had and so on. So that's really a rediscovering of self, because a lot of times we just focus on what happened beyond slavery, right? So we have to try, and it's very difficult to do that, but little things like that, the clothes that we wear, and as I was telling someone, I think or maybe yesterday, so much of our culture has survived. It may have changed a little bit here and there, but a lot of it has survived, and it's for us to find the beauty in this and continue. Yes? Yes, Sarah?
I have a follow-on to that. An excellent lecture this evening, Carla.
Thank you
very much. I really enjoyed the way that you allowed us to journey through different art forms, but also from, millennia ago up until present time. So I think that, as Probyn is smiling on us, he will be happy with the way in which his legacy is continuing through lectures like this. But in relation, I actually had the exact same thought and question to ask as it pertains to meaning and knowledge now, because we have this way of almost homogenizing our perspective of Africa as well, where there are so many varying cultures within the continent. But dialogue like this is very important, and we did something similar with Imara Designs up at Shadwell Great House. And at that presentation, Imara brings in fabric from Tanzania, and she was sharing with us the meaning behind the different fabrics also that people wear. And one of them, she said, is a fabric, she gave the story of a fabric that someone would wear if they're going to an event where there's going to be somebody they don't like, so they want to quietly, you know, like throw it, as they would say. You know, or if she even gave this scenario where if there was a woman who was having a relationship with somebody's husband, and she knew that the wife would be there, she would wear this fabric. So, you know, of course, people have the question, do you sell that? Because, you know, you want to make sure you're not buying that.
Okay, I got that piece on my head from her, so I hope it's just one of those.
She does not sell it, but that I think is a very important part of the discussion and rediscovery of roots for Caribbean people. And that is part of the dialogue that I think needs to be ongoing, that needs to continue, so that when we're looking at dance forms, when we're looking at cultural practices, when we're looking at fabrics, when we're looking at cuisine, you know, all of those things, that we understand their significance as we continue along with the legacy. So I just wanted to build on that point, and thank you.
Thank you. So our cook-up, Dominica's pilau, Trinidad pilau, the jambalaya, I could say they're very similar to the jollof rice, you know. The egusi soup, we make a nice okra soup, or cook up, you know, the bouillon, all of those things. You know, there's so much, the turn corn, yes, and all of those things. So these are, as a culinary arts, I didn't really touch on it, but, you know, there's continuity. Any other questions? Yes.
What you looked at this evening, very wonderful presentation, very enlightening and well researched. So thank you very much. Present, which is most of the audience this evening, and then we look at the future, some of the young ones we have presently who are here from the Washington Archibald High School. But my question is, what we are seeing continuing is what the older persons, so how can we get younger persons to be more involved in the arts, such as the pottery and, you know, the other things, so that we can have a future, so that the later generation can be able to say that there was continuity. Because if you look at it now, the younger persons, they're not too interested in those sort of things, because it's more going for what North America has compared to looking at where we came from. And so if we don't understand and appreciate our past, how are we going to then continue to have a future? And so that's my question. How do we get the young people to be more conscious of where we came from and to embrace our culture so that there can be futurism?
I think, what's her name? Isabel Byron, doctor. She gave the opening remarks in Nevis. She talked about at Newcastle Pottery right now, they have brought in some folks from Hamilton Pottery in Barbados, and they're going to conduct, or they've started conducting training. I'm sure some young people on Nevis are going to, you know, be a part of that. I know that the students of Washington Archibald High, Child's High, all of these schools, they do have an art program. Any of you here today are in the art program? Okay, so they do learn, and I'm not sure how much emphasis the teachers place on them, you know, reaching into the African part of them. So at some point, they will decide how they want to express themselves, you know. Like when I was talking about Vaughan, for instance, Vaughan might do things like coconut trees and turtles and so on, but there's another part of him where he wants to do African-inspired, where he does African-inspired art. Same for me. I may make pottery with my dancing sugarcane because I know that's what the tourists, you know, I've somehow developed it and the tourists like it. Locals like it as well. But when I started doing pottery, I liked making masks. I like doing these African faces. I like looking at people and trying to capture them in clay. So that is something that is like soul thing, you know? So everyone has to find their own way, and as they read their history, they will see how the art will come through, what sort of art they want to produce, whether it's using technology, you know, because a lot of them are into AI and so on, how they can manipulate it to bring forth their art. Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things that we tend to miss a lot when we talk about the young people and us losing what was there before, the onus is really on us to teach them, to bring it forward. In the Department of Culture, we have several programs that we do, and one of our main focuses is on the folklore. So we have folklore camps. And during the carnival season, at the junior parade, we put out clowns, actors, mummies, makajambi, and we normally do string band. Even though some of them didn't go on the road last year, we do have a string band. And the string band is now, you know, spreading, and one of our tradition holders, Aiden Hendrickson, he now has a string band group added onto his bull actors, clowns at St. Peter's. They call it St. Peter's, bringing back the culture, right? We do master classes in drumming, fife, and we're going to extend it to banjo and all of those things, and not just for them to play them, but also how to make the instruments. One of the master classes that we did last year, we did two last year, that was stonework down at Oasis, where the guys that did that, and a lot of them were young people, they restored one of the stone walls down there, and we did metal crafts. And it was amazing to see a lot of girls show up for the metal crafting. Sometimes you don't know what the young people want until you actually present an opportunity for them to think. At Washi, right now, I think tomorrow, Mr. Williams, tomorrow they're going to announce the winners for the door competition.
Yes.
They did their Black History Month door decorating competition, and my daughter had me up late in the night, cutting up cloth to dress a woman that she drew, and she gave her a big afro, and I had to make earrings, and I had to dress her up in Africa, so I had to cut up on the dresses to make an African dress for her and everything, and her teacher made a 3D drum for it. So, and we do drumming as well, and the children love those things. So I think the more we expose them, the more they're going to actually find their niche. And as to what the gentleman asked about social media, because they love social media, the more we get them into these things, the more they put on social media, and the more people get to see of the culture that they're involved in, and that's how we're going to proliferate it. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Keisha. Aaron, Jessica.
For very illuminating and interesting and inspiring talk tonight.
Thank you.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if it exists at the moment, maybe not, but there is CXC art. And both my girls did art for CXC. It is first of all something that you enjoy and it fulfills you, and you can use it to fit every mood that you have. And it can also, for years, be income generating, give you, there's so many dimensions to doing art as a subject in school. I hope that we will reach the point where art is offered all the way up through high school. If our children want to do it, if our young people want to do it, because
and at Cape, I believe there's art at Cape.
Yes,
but
yes,
but not at CXC.
Yes.
yeah, 6, yes, because actually a lot of children are doing ceramics, pottery, and they fire the work at my studio. The work is fired at my studio, yeah. So I see the work that they produce a lot of times, and some of it is very, very, very interesting, you know. So whether, you know, sometimes they do animals and so on, but every now and again you see some piece, like some head or, you know, I like faces, so some mask or something like that, very, very. I opened the kiln actually yesterday, early this morning, because there was work from the child school in it, and it was a lot of really good work. Okay, so yes, so they've been doing that for years, so I see the work that they're doing. So it's up to them after school if they're going to continue on, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, Mr.
Something you said that I love very much, that movement is survival. And I've come to realize that more and more people now are using soca music as a way to exercise. Yeah, you have and the playing field, the football field, we organize this session and we have the soca music playing, and but mostly females. Hardly find any males.
Soca size. It's called soca size.
Soca size. Oh,
yes, soca size. So there you have soca size. You have Zumba. You have all kinds of, you know. It's us reclaiming. You no longer just using Jane Fonda music.
That something you said about jump. Yes, feel the jump. You said feel.
Yeah, feel the jump.
Feel the jump.
Yeah. I see Creative Economy is doing another expo, so I hope they bring back Law and Antoinette.
I don't represent it yet.
Yes, but some you know, I think in some part of my brain somewhere I've envisioned myself as a dancer. I think if I recall, as a young girl in Convent High, I went to a dance class, and the dance teacher told me I couldn't dance. And I don't know, I think it just sort of, you know, I think I couldn't lift my legs properly or something like that. She said I couldn't dance. And after that, I always, somewhere in my little brain, I wanted to dance still. So every time there's a dance workshop, here goes Carla. You know, I'm going along. I went to Alfonso Henry had one. They brought in someone so I, you know, even if I'm the oldest person there, but I'm doing my dance still. So I feel the rhythm. And my friend way at the back there, we go dancing every weekend. She's hiding. So we dance at the beach. You know, we love to dance, so that's where I express myself. I go to Shipwreck on a Sunday afternoon and dance. So I love dancing. Especially to our Caribbean beats, yeah? Mm-hmm.
But this is why repair is necessary.
Yes.
I love that you did reparations as part of your presentation, because that goes even further than dancing. We have been told that we can't do so much, but we come from civilizations that have done so much. The pyramids are still standing. I mean, the Benin bronzes that they returned, why did they take them? Because they were fantastic. They had never seen anything like it. And so now we have to let our young people know, as part of the cultural retention, is that this thing is in your DNA. You have the ability to do it. You just have to tap into it. The human mind works in that kind of way, where you can tell yourself that you have the ability to either do it or to learn how to do it. And I think that some of our young people may be intimidated by the things that they see, by people telling them, that they cannot do the thing, and so sometimes they don't even want to try it. So as Keisha said, when you give them the opportunity to do it, then their creativity, their innovation, it blossoms because it's already in them. And so I think that that repairing of our minds is essential, even as we seek to reclaim the things that we have lost.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's it for questions now. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
I think that that round of applause doesn't really capture the powerful presentation that Carla gave. What can I say? Words cannot adequately describe that presentation. Excellent. And the discussion as well, so interesting. The questions were relevant, they were pertinent, and it really challenged us to really look deeper than just the art form. Because sometimes we only see the art form, and we don't really see the connections and the linkages. And as she said, she linked it to identity and to resistance and aesthetics and to beauty. And then we heard also about survival. Art is about survival, how our culture and our identity and all of that survives. So cultural reproduction, we heard, cultural retention, and we heard we don't want cultural erasure, and all of that. So quite interesting. And your own experience of being a potter. And of course, you're not just talking something pedantic, something up there, but from your own experience of working with the clay and molding it and so on, and the spiritual connections and so on that you have. Very, 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 very good. I'll now call on Mrs. Tessa Isaac to give the vote of thanks. She's the operations manager at the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park. Mrs. Isaac.
Okay. Permit me to adopt the protocols that were previously established. Mr. Williams. Good evening, everyone. Short. Just to add a little bit of what Mr. Williams just said, it seems like not only the ladies, the gentlemen too, when we go shopping, we have to do our research. So make sure we're wearing the right things when we buy that type of wear. I didn't know that. So I would do my research because I love that kind of thing. After such a stirring lecture and a fine evening together, it is now my pleasant duty to extend thanks. First, heartfelt appreciation to the members of the History and Heritage Committee for your dedication in planning this event. Your suggestions, feedback, and guidance have culminated in tonight's success. Whenever we meet, our first 2 meetings to organize the History and Heritage, there's always a challenge about the theme. When we settle on a theme, I personally always say, I'm glad I'm not the lecturer. What am I going to say? But for the past 3 years, I experienced it first with Mr. Byron, and then last year we had Mr. from Nevis, at the time from Nevis, and then tonight it was just amazing. Special thanks to Lady Inniss and her daughters for gracing us with your presence and helping us to keep Sir Probyn's legacy alive. Thanks also to Sanja Keynes, Mr. Keynes, of a student of the UE alumna, St. Kitts and Nevis, for invoking God's presence. Our chairperson, Mr. Leroy Williams, also UE alumna, for guiding us through the program. Thank you. To the UE Global Campus, St. Kitts Nevis, Mrs. Gail Gray, Ms. Sandra Isaac, and team, we extend sincere thanks for making this annual event possible. We are back at the UE Global. For the past couple of years, we were at the ECCB because, here was closed for a while, so we're happy to be back on this territory, okay? We also acknowledge the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park Society, a key partner in History and Heritage Month of activities. Our gratitude to our General Manager of the Society, Mr. Percival Hanley, and also the Chairman of the History and Heritage Committee. Thank you, Mr. Hanley, for your brief remarks. Thank you, Pauline Duport, for introducing our featured speaker. Thank you, Keisha. Another poem. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank Ms. Carla Astafan, Potter, entrepreneur, tour director, chair of the St. Kitts Nevis Reparations Committee. We are deeply grateful for your insightful lecture, which was clearly well received. I'd like to call Pauline, make a presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Ms. Carla Astafan to stand as we do this presentation. So, Ms. Carla Astafan, on behalf of the St. Kitts Nevis UE Global Campus, well, actually the entire fraternity of the UE Global Campus, I would like to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to us on the 9th annual lecture, Sir Probyn Inniss lecture. We want to say thank you very much. We have learned a lot about our past, our future, and our present. For me, what I took away is I never really could have understood pottery. So when I saw you explaining, I want to say thank you very much for that. I didn't know it had a lot of work like that, but thank you very, very much. We appreciated your lecture. Thank you.
We'd like to thank the ushers from the Guild of Student Executives at the UE Global Campus for their efficient assistance. To our audience, both here at the UE Open Campus and joining us via social media, thank you for your active participation. Your engagement completed the evening. As we look forward to next year's lecture, we warmly invite you to join us again. Tell your friends. Thank you all very much, and I wish you a safe journey home.
And there's very little left for me to say except to let you know that there are light refreshments after, and I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight to this awesome lecture, the 9th annual Sir Probyn Inniss Memorial Lecture Series. May his memory continue to inspire us. And may all the presenters at this lecture series continue to inspire us as well as we continue to learn more about our history and our Black history. So thank you. Get home safely. Get your refreshments.